Hey everyone, Scott Hansen here from NFL Red Zone. I hope you're checking out 1 hour of 5 Yard Rush, one of the best podcasts on NFL football in the UK.
Good evening, Rush Nation. How are we doing? It's a lovely Thursday evening here. It's very hot here in the UK. Don't worry, I'm not going to be alone the entire time. But I thought because we've got a load of people waiting to draft, I'll jump on and I'll explain a little bit about tonight's show. So, auction drafts are one of those things that people really want to do and either don't have the kind of knowledge to do it, the confidence to do it, or there aren't enough leagues really going to do an auction draft. And so I've run our Listener League auction draft, I think every year for the last, I want to say like 5 or 6 years, but it could even be a bit longer than that. And with regards to auction, it's just a really fun format. It is very different. It is very unique to what there is in fantasy football. The opportunity that you could, in theory, draft, Tyreek Hill, Christian McCaffrey, and Amon-Ra St. Brown on the same team. Like, you can do that in an auction draft. You might not have much money left at the end to do it, but you can. And that's the great thing about auction drafts is you can pick yourself up. And our guest tonight, who's going to be joining me momentarily, is an expert on this. And that's because he is Drew Davenport of Football Guys. He'll be here shortly. And so Drew has been writing about auction for as long as, I think probably about 10 years now, maybe longer. I'll have to ask him. But he's been doing this a long time, writes for Football Guys. And really, he's a keen poker player. And so when I start talking to Drew about auctions, the topic of conversation about poker comes up. And it is fundamentally very true. There is a lot of similarities about knowing when to bluff, and it is much better in a live situation for sure. But also just with regards to the poker element. Sorry, I'm getting messages in the league because they want to start. There is this element of the nominations and who to nominate, and there is a nomination strategy. Drew and I will cover a bit of this as we're going through this draft. But also, it's just really important to understand that when to bluff, how much to bid for, when to hold your money back, and when to be, absolutely spot on when it comes to your bidding process, holding your budget key, sticking to your guns, having a plan beforehand, and also knowing where you can save money and where you can really spend the money. And so some of the concepts that if you haven't been listening to us for that long, Drew's been on the show a couple of times before, and we have sort of really hammered this topic to good esteem if you're a long-term listener. If you haven't, go back and listen to it, and also listen to some of Drew's podcasts. He hosts a brilliant podcast called The Auction Brief. But, having a plan of how much money to spend on each room, how much to spend on your subs or your bench, for example, how much to spend on your key players, and knowing where to hold back and sticking firm to that, and having a little bit of play but not too much is really key to this. So, but there are many ways to do auctions. There is the whole scattergun approach: spend your money early, wait until you see what you get at the end. There is the really cautious approach where you let a lot of players go by very quickly and just basically let a lot of players go by, then try and scoop up the value sort of later on as well. So lots and lots of different ways that you can go through this. Drew and I will analyze this as we're going through. And really with regards to doing this live, it was an idea I came up with a couple of years ago and I just never got around to it. I thought it'd be really good to actually explain the concept of draft, because I don't think there's that many auction players in the UK. I think people probably have done one or two and they kind of dabbled. But it's really hard to kind of talk about the science and strategy of auction without actually doing one live. So I feel like this is a really good opportunity to do that. But then also as well, each auction draft is very different. There isn't a tailor-made formula. It's not like when you're looking at PPR and you have a strategy, and you could pretty much hammer a very similar strategy in terms of roster construction build, where to build your value. And you can probably build a good carbon copy of that across a multitude of drafts. There'll be some inconsistencies there with the way that some players will be reached for, some players fall back. In an auction, you really don't have the time, or because of the fact of its unique nature, you don't actually know what's going to happen. Unless you draft with the same people every single year and you have a real feeling for what they're going to do, it's very difficult to predict. And that's why a live auction experience is brilliant, because if you're a good poker player and you've got those tells and you can read people, and you can tell the people that are over prepped versus the people who are rightly prepped versus the people who are wrongly prepped, you can get a really good feel for what people are doing. And if not, then, when you're doing this online version, it's perhaps a little bit more difficult. I'm not in the room with everyone, for example. I'm here live streaming, so I'm at a massive disadvantage to, say, everybody else drafting who can look at sheets, etc. I will be going through this sort of as we're going through, and Drew's going to come on at some point and come talk to us. Or not to mention, we're also going to have other people in the league to come through and come talk to us. So hopefully, I have sent the invite. Let's see how many people take me up on that. I'm just literally putting the link to the StreamYard in the chat. So I'm just going to do that quickly for the audio version. This might not be the best audio podcast I've ever recorded. I'm getting around and making excuses already. I'm not the best auction player in the world. I'm going to stick my hand up to this. I pretty much donate the money to the charity every year. We got our defending champion, Will Day. He is in this year. One of the things I do with my listener leagues, it's really important. And if you haven't actually played in any of my listener leagues and you're sitting here watching this, I do charity listener leagues. I've still got one going, which is our tier PPR. I've got 3 spots left. Send me a DM or follow any of the messages I've got, and you can join me and play with that. But my defending champions get to defend their crown every single year. And the only people that get to stay in the format are myself and the defending champion. And I play in all of them, so you get an opportunity to play against me. And I've sort of talked for about 7 minutes. My buddy Drew Davenport is here to bail me out of this jam. Drew, what is up, my man? How you doing?
Hey, sorry to leave you hanging there. Just a long day at work, but we're ready to rock.
Excellent. And are you all ready to? Have you ever done an auction draft live stream before?
I have. I can't say I was very good at it, but I've done it a couple times live. Giving my thoughts as we went. Yeah. But yeah, it's not going to be easy. But hey, we'll give it a shot.
Brilliant. I know. I'm dreading this because, but then I'm prepared to lose. I don't mind losing the auction. Someone wants to know, what's the album cover?
I am not prepared to lose. I'm not conceding anything. The album cover right here, that is Into the Wild, the soundtrack by Eddie Vedder.
Wow.
So I love that soundtrack. If you haven't heard it before, it is beautiful.
Do you know what? I'm a huge Pearl Jam fan, and I can't say I have heard that soundtrack. So that'll be me tonight when I go to bed. Be listening to that.
Check it out. It's a bit unusual. It's from the movie Into the Wild, so
okay.
It'll make more sense when you watch the movie, but just prepared for it to be a little different when you're listening to it.
Also, not a movie I've ever heard of, so I have to try that one out. Right, we have people waiting patiently here for the auction to start, so I am going to open up the draft room and I'm going to let people in, and then I guess you and I can have a bit of a chat on strategy. Again, when I say I'm prepared to lose, I'm not going to try and lose here. I am going to try and beat you all. I'm just saying my multitasking ability is probably not quite as good as say, my wife's, for example. So I'm definitely going to lose a train of thought here. But I'm going to hit the draft start now. Only 10 minutes late. That's not too bad. So I guess just to explain this for anyone who is an old hand at auctions, and then maybe people who don't. So there's a nomination period where you can nominate absolutely any player who's eligible to be picked up. It's a 10-second nomination period, and then it's a 30-second bidding process, but the last 10 seconds gets reset. So if you bid within inside 2 seconds, it goes up to 10 seconds. So it's not like an eBay style where you just wait to bid until the last second and hope it goes up. So if someone made a bid now, for example, you'll see the timer has rechanged. I'm not going to bother Drew because he's busy trying to win Christian McCaffrey.
That's all right.
But it's funny.
It's just too low right now.
It is low. It is absolutely low. I think it will nudge above 50. I'd be surprised if it doesn't nudge above 50.
I ain't letting it go below 50. If I get him for 49, I'm just happy. There we go.
The thing I have wildly realized on this when I did a live stream draft the other time is people can see like my watch lists and stuff. So I can't put anyone in a watch list. I'm literally going to have to do this live, and I'm not going to do it on the screen. I'm going to do it on my phone, so you can't see it go through. So you're seeing that the betting is still going. As you see, the clock does reset every time. It's now up to $58. And it's going to go now. So that is first player for ball, Christian McCaffrey. Not surprised. I was in an auction draft, Drew, for the Kings Classic. I'm sure you were at the weekend at the Expo with Jesse Morse, who has him on his do not draft list, but left the auction well on auto and ended up with him anyway.
Oh, I know. I heard all about it. We went to dinner right after it happened, so I heard all about it. He was frustrated. He said that every time he went out of the app and came back in, it signed him out. Yeah. So he ended up with all these players that he didn't know that he was going to have. So
yeah, classic ESPN. I had the same thing sort of last year. And yeah, it does happen. So you've got to be really careful with that. I wonder if we've got someone who's not here in Ben.
Yeah, I think I see a couple. Chris and this one right here looks like are not here.
Okay, let's send some noties.
All right, so that was a nice little price for CD Lamb there at $45. I'm not here to say that I think that we have to spend more than that, but most drafts I've been in have been higher than 45. So that's a good number.
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe some people are a bit concerned that the deal's not been signed. I'm personally not worried on that.
I'm not worried about that.
I do find people, I think it will get done. I think it will get done for 33 a year. I think is the numbers that are being bandied around. And I think when you start hearing that hitting the domain, then you kind of know that they can't be that far off.
So are all the folks...
I think everyone else is here. Just these.
Are they all listening to us so that we can?
Yeah, they're all listening.
Maybe I can throw out a little disinformation.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think I hear your clock in the background.
Oh yeah, you will do. Unfortunately, that's the problem.
You're really gonna kill yourself if you don't keep the clock on, though.
Yeah. Oh well, look, I've ended up with Tyreek Hill on my roster. Similar to a player I got on the I need to mute it. There we go. I'm going to turn the volume. There we go. That's the one. I'll mute it. There we go. We sorted it. Yeah, it's the same player I got in the Kings Classic. I got Tyreek, and actually for similar money. Are you seeing him go for more? Because I tend to think 50 is a good amount of money for him.
So in previous years, I hadn't seen a whole lot of receivers going for over 50.
Yeah.
But this year, it's been pretty routine that a couple guys get above 50. And there's been some more sustained prices. What is this deal here? I can't let that happen. No way is that going to happen. 27. We're still low on Gibbs. You're all your listeners, if they're listening to this. I'm just going to be giving out my free information here, folks.
That's good.
Boy, that's a low number. That's a low number. It's got to be that
28 for Gibbs. Yeah, that's definitely a good deal. People are worried, and that's fine. And I think there's a bit of caginess here, to be honest. I think there are people in this draft who are definitely a little cagey with their bidding here in the early streams. I think they're nervous you're here, Drew, because it was a late surprise. So I think they are a little bit.
If they know who I am.
Most of my audience do know who you are. We reference you quite a bit, and you obviously have been on before. But maybe for those who aren't too familiar, talk us about your love of auction, like where it came from, how long you've been doing this, and I saw it was doing in the intro. the comparisons to poker, but you'll do a better job of it than I will.
Yeah. So basically, I fell in love with it a long time ago. This is a little bit of a different story than most folks. Was that a misclick on Josh Allen there?
44.
Yeah, that had to be a misclick. Whoops. All right. Yeah. So what happened to? I apologize here. I'm getting text from my wife about getting the kids off the bus. So yeah, what happened to me was my first ever league was an auction, and that's unusual. Obviously, I didn't really know about the other ways to play, and I guess that was a good thing at first. And one of the first players that I ever drafted was David Boston, and he was not. I think I got him for like $6 or something like that. I can't remember, $9 or whatever. It was really cheap, and it was the year that he went on to have his 1,500 yards, 8 touchdown season. And I just fell in love with it after that. That's the kind of thing that'll get you hooked,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's my story. That's how I fell in love with it. I've been doing it ever since.
Amazing. And yeah, it is a bit like a golf swing, isn't it? That when you draft a player, you get the most incredible value out of it. There is no better feeling when you've just absolutely trumped the board with a league winning either a waiver wire pickup or draft pick or auction pick as you've made. I think it's just there's not many better feelings out there, especially in fantasy football. There isn't.
Yeah, well, and I continue to try to add auction drafts every year, and I don't think that it ever goes away. The how much fun it is, and last year I had a couple just juggernaut teams, and that's just so much fun. So much fun.
And so, talk to us about the team you drafted at the weekend, because you're at the FF Expo in Canton, drafting in the Hall of Fame. You did your auction draft live. I did mine online as one of the lucky people that gets to play the King's Classic whilst not being there. Luckily, Bob a few years ago created an international division where we're half international, half in the room. So, which is a real blessing. So, talk to us about how that went, how your team went up, and what it's like drafting in person versus an online auction. Because I think most people in the UK only have experience to online auctions.
Yeah, it is a lot different. I mean, there's a in-person quality that you can't really get around. It's being able to read people and see what they're doing and see how they're acting and all that stuff definitely matters in a live one. Plus, there is a lot to body language that even if you don't study it or think about it or whatever, you're going to notice it when you're in the room with somebody, and that's pretty palpable. And so I pay attention to that stuff a lot, and you can tell when people are nervous, and you can tell when they're hesitant to bid, that kind of thing. Whoops, I am on the clock, folks.
You're up. Yeah, I agree. And I think the poker element of it is why I love this format so more. I really am desperate. I have done live in-person drafts for auction, but it has been, I've got to say, it's got to be at least a dozen years, maybe even more than that since my last one. And it's something I would love to do more in the UK. I think it's something that would be an amazing thing to do. I just think it is quite hard to do and organize.
It is. It's hard to get people to commit.
It's hard to get people to commit, especially if everyone my age, it's all about kids. You almost need to plan it like 6 months in advance to get it done. So yeah, it is tricky, but I think next year I've decided that we will definitely do it, and we'll get a date in and do an in-person auction, because I think there is nothing better just to get a few drinks, although I'm teetotal now, and try and loosen people up a little bit.
Well, yeah, and I'm talking about the strategy side of it. I mean, the human side of it is that it's just so much fun. It's so much fun. And if you get an auctioneer, now I do the auctioning for my leagues. I'm in 3 home leagues that are auctions. I'm the auctioneer. But a lot of people don't like to do that until they get it. But just hire an auctioneer or something. Have fun with it. It is just a blast. It's an absolute blast.
When you say you're the auctioneer, so for your home leagues, you don't play, or you do play, but you do both roles?
I do both. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Do you have your own panel that you sort of hold up and you go, yeah, it's staying with the auctioneer here at $12?
Yeah. Well, so I just have I've developed a cadence that I have that's very straightforward, and people know they can count on that. And you know the 14 for Kincaid's not a bad price either. Yeah, I've developed that so they're comfortable with it. I've never had a complaint. I've never had somebody say, "Oh, you wait longer for bids when it's on me," or "You go fast when it's on you." I've never had a complaint. So if there had been an issue, people would have brought it up long ago. So
Yeah,
it's fine. It works, and I enjoy it. I like being in the middle of it. Keeps me alert. Keeps me locked into what we're doing.
and just on that then, so you've got that role where you do have that dual role, and in the room, do you set? I guess because you're in the room, it's just not this necessary urgency to have a time. Is there like a natural, like almost like a real auction, like a 3, 2, 1, it's going final offer, or do
Hmm.
you stick to a clock where you say right, and you have a timer that you keep going?
Yeah, no, I don't have a clock live. It's just one of those things where I'm going to naturally speed up as the draft goes on, and so the lower dollar players, when it's a $5 or $6 or $7 player, I'm not going to spend a lot of time waiting on bids. I'm
No,
going to get in there and I'm gonna keep it moving. But early on, if we're talking about Christian McCaffrey, I'm going to give it a second. When the bidding slows down, I'm going to let the room sit there for a couple seconds. Then I'm going to say going once, 55 going twice, and sold. And that's going to be a pretty slow cadence there for for the top guys in the first 2-3 rounds. After that, I'm going to speed it up a little bit so that we get the draft moving.
yeah, that makes sense, and I think that's useful to have that as a general rule, because I think it's supposed to be more fun. It doesn't need to be so rigid to have that as a rule in real life drafts, especially in person. But then I also think you don't want it to go on for days and weeks and months, do you? Because it can
Ours used to take about 7 hours, and we cut that down to about 4. So
7 hours of auction free drafting just starting now. You should get Scott Hansen in for some of those.
it was a lot of fun, and that's part of it. It was just like, hey, we're having a good time. Let's just keep going. But yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot.
What is your? Do you have like a favorite auction draft story of yours?
I got a lot of them. I got a lot. I can tell a couple of them. Well, these are just funny. These aren't about football. Is that cool?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, we had a guy who liked to drink a whole lot, and he was totally fine and working through this draft. And at one point, he started to get pretty intoxicated. We could tell, but it was crazy what happened. He went from fairly sober and coherent to at one point he walked outside. We couldn't find him for a minute. We had to get him and bring him back in. And then all of a sudden he was slurring his words pretty bad. And this is back in the day when do you remember LeGarrette Blount?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is back in the day when he was with the Steelers.
Oh wow.
And
Okay.
yeah. And so he was a big Steelers fan. So it gets to him and we say, "What's your nomination?" He says, "Look at this." And we're like, "Who?" And he says, "Ladarius." We're like, "Ladarius?" And the funny part is that he set his opening bid for like $20, which was a weird opening bid, and LeGarrette Blount was never worth $20. And we're like, "Man, are you sure that you want to say $20?" And he's like, "Yeah, 20." So then when we open the bidding, we're like, "We'll just let you do $1, man. It's not a big deal." He's like, "Okay, $1." And then my other buddy says, "Well, he was willing to go to 20." So my buddy says 10. And then the room was silent and the guy never bid again. And my buddy got stuck with him for $10. And literally 30 seconds later, he was face down in a bush in the parking lot. So, yeah, he had a little bit too much to drink, and security came and said, "Your buddy's passed out in the bush." That was a train wreck. That guy got auto drafted. His like even live, we just didn't give him any more players. We just finished our draft. He only had 5 guys, and he went on to make the playoffs that year. So that's a pretty good story.
That's incredible.
I had another
5 guys, picked everyone up off
Yep.
waivers, and he
Yep.
still kicked all your behinds. I love that.
It was like Mike Evans' rookie season, so he had Evans, and Evans went off, and like it was, yeah. Anyway, yeah. So my other story is pretty funny as well. I had a buddy who also liked to drink a lot. These are both alcohol related stories, but yeah. So he's at our live draft one year, and this is back in the day when quarterbacks ruled everything, and you took quarterbacks early. And it was Peyton Manning and Tom Brady were the 2 top choices, like who's going to be number 1. Well, the guy had already bought Tom Brady. Brady's on his team for like $45, like it was a ton of money. And then Peyton Manning comes up, and he's starting to bid on Manning, and we're thinking to ourselves, now he already has Brady for like 40 some dollars. Why is he bidding on Peyton Manning? Well, little did we know until after this happened, he didn't realize that he was also bidding on a second top quarterback. So we all kind of just let it happen. And then my other friend's bidding because he's frustrated because he wants Peyton Manning. And he just thinks the guy's bidding him up. And he's getting mad at the guy because he thinks, why are you bidding me up when you already have Tom Brady? He keeps going. He keeps going. Finally, my friend throws his hands up. He's like, all right, I'm out. I can't, I'm not going to pay this for Peyton Manning. And the dude wins. Peyton Manning and Tom Brady has like $90 tied up in 2 quarterbacks at the beginning of the draft, but doesn't realize it. He walks up to the draft board and sees that he already has Tom Brady and he's about to put Peyton Manning up, and he freezes and is like, oh no, and realizes suddenly what he just did. And then he turns around and looks at the room and says, well, bye week, bitches. And we all lost it. I mean, it was great because he realized all of a sudden, oh no, I just did a horrible thing. And then he pulled out the great joke that, hey, I got a bye week and I'll have a top quarterback on my bye week. So that was a pretty good story too. We haven't stopped talking about that. It happened like 15 years ago.
I absolutely love that. That's absolutely amazing. I'll just update some of the audio listeners on this who aren't watching this live, or maybe both, because we're kind of not doing the draft a massive service here, telling stories, which is fine. I just won Kyron Williams for $31, which I'm excited about. I have Kyron Williams in a top 6 RB role. For me, he's kind of like the best of the rest. So I've paired him and Tyreek Hill, so I've burned a bit of cash. We've got a few people who haven't got anyone yet. You bought Jamar Chase for $42. How do you feel about that, Drew?
I feel good. Anytime you're in the low 40s for one of those top receivers, I feel pretty good about it. So I told myself if somebody went below 45, I was going to take him. So I feel great about Chase there.
I feel Marvin Harrison for $19, and I've been out on Marvin Harrison at draft price all off season, but Marvin Harrison Jr. at $19 feels like a bit of a steal.
It is. That's a really low number. The numbers have been low already, and I've been afraid to say it, but now they're starting to creep up there.
Yeah,
but I should have jumped on a couple deals earlier. Harrison for 19 is silly.
Yeah, that is cheap. Yeah, Commissioner Casey hasn't bought anyone as of yet. Fan of Duck UK got Mahomes just now to pair with Marvin Harrison Jr. And to get the pair of them for $41 combined is pretty good going, if I do say so myself. Paul Rhodes Falcons. He has the most expensive running back room I've seen in an auction for quite some time. He spent $105 on Christian McCaffrey and Bijan Robinson. Raider Butts, Matt Butler, has spent $44 on Josh Allen, $50 on Jonathan Taylor, $45 on CD Lamb, which is only giving him $61 left to fill the rest of his team, and he's got 12 players left to do that. So that's going to be tricky to do. What would you do in that situation? Can you give Matt some advice on how to get out of that one?
Yeah, sit there for about an hour. It will come back to you, but it's going to take a while. And you have your top 3 guys. You got 3 great players, but now you're done. Looks like we got a couple auto drafters here. That's going to make things interesting.
Yeah, which is weird because definitely P155272 was here
Yeah, he
earlier
was.
on. I know Chris Budge wasn't. Oh, there's some breaking news just live that Brandon Cooks is heading to the locker room after visiting the medical tent.
Uh-oh.
So, we do have some auto drafters, which is interesting. So, talk about what the auto, for those who perhaps aren't too familiar with auctions, why going on auto draft and what that does to the rest of the draft for everybody else.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's going to change things significantly because there's prices, as you can see projected prices next to the players, and the computer is going to try to bid people up to those projected prices. And so you can kind of tell you're not going to get a deal for a little while here with 2 auto drafters. So I really should have been on at a couple players early on that were a little too cheap.
Yeah. So if you went about and got a couple of studs early, you're not in too bad a spot. So I was quite happy to get Kyron at 39. 31 against 39 is this projected on sleep, although I don't necessarily think that's that accurate, but and Hill is 50, and I feel like I can sit and let the auto drafters spend all their money a bit now.
They are going at it, the two of them.
So maybe this is a good time to talk about nominations. And at this stage, it's probably when you've got people on auto draft, you want to start putting nominations up for players you don't want, because you're not going to get the players you want at a good price you want.
Yeah, you're not getting a deal. I mean, it's okay. You can pay market price. That's all right. But you're going to pay market price, which unfortunately it's going to just take a little while for the money to be whittled down. So unfortunately, somebody just nominated David Njoku. I don't care, but don't nominate at this point. You don't want to nominate somebody like that unless you just really don't want him, because he's back. He's back now.
No, so that was someone who's deliberately has done that as part of their strategy. They
right. Yeah, exactly. So either they don't want him, or they thought maybe they would pay the market price. But yeah, I'm trying to nominate high dollar players that I don't want.
Yeah.
So the auto drafter can spin out some of his money, and I can then get back to drafting.
And so one of the auto drafters is now back, which is Chris. So Chris is back. So we're now just down to one auto drafter, which I guess makes it a little bit easier for the rest of the room, because it is oh, by the way, this is funny. Dan Murph was pushing you and you bottled it on your boy JT. This is one of my Patreons, right? I really like Jonathan Taylor. I also knew that's what you were doing. So I'm really sorry. But I knew that's what you were doing, and so that's why I was quite happy to stiff you with him. That was the poker in the poker, as I read that was the situation. And there was 2 of you that were bidding me up, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to just get this a little bit higher so it's not a deal, and then I'm going to just pass.
Is that bid 120? I think that's a mistake. Do you want to pause the draft?
Yeah, how do I pause?
Upper right-hand corner. You can click on those nominations.
Yeah.
You can click on the button. Yeah, there you go. You can roll that back. That can't be. That has to be a mistake.
Who did $121?
It was Crispy 83.
Yeah. Okay.
He hit max bid on accident, I think.
Yeah. There we go. So, yeah,
we have to. Can we put Ayuk back up?
Well, because the bid ended.
Well, it doesn't matter to me. I don't care.
Yeah.
We'll just let him nom and we'll move on.
Yeah. It's fine. Maybe if the next person because I know the guys are watching this, maybe if the next person could just, for purity's sake, just put up Brandon Ayuk, because there's been submitting on that would be good. But yeah, I didn't quite get to the pause in time.
I'd never seen a 3-digit bid before. I didn't know what I was seeing. No. I was like that. I leaned forward. I was like, that number's really small. What is
I was just looking like saying this is more than your max bid, and I was like, and I didn't clock it straight. It's one of those things because again, like you, I'd never seen it. I was like, what's going on? So, yeah, okay, Well, that's fine. Look, this is part of the educational process of doing this auction thing. So let's go through. Hopefully, we'll see. Yeah, if someone can nominate Brandon Ayuk, that would be good. That's what I'm hoping to see. No, I'm not getting listened to here. That's fine. I'll go through some of the other drafts so get everyone some time. So Chris Budge is back. He got David Njoku and Breece Hall. $62 on Breece Hall. That's hit the budget. That was on the auto.
Come on, people. You're not going to let me have ETN for $2. Sorry. Go ahead, Murph.
No. No, because I'd have jumped in sooner rather than later. In fact, I'm going to move this on a little bit. So we've got here Crispy got, before he wasted all his money on Brandon Ayuk, Justin Jefferson and Jahmyr Gibbs. Good prices on both. I know there's a bit of concern about Justin Jefferson with the downgrade to Sam Darnold, but I think $40 is a fair price. If you get your outcome, you're sort of laughing there. So I like that. James Spavin, who's AVFC JPS. Amon-Ra Brown, AJ Brown. I think they're two really good values on those two receivers. Good foundation to your team. What are your thoughts on those?
Yeah, both of them. I should have bid them up on those. Not that I necessarily would have won them, but after I had Chase for 42, didn't really want to be caught holding the bag on St. Brown for 40, so I stopped. Same thing on AJ Brown. I didn't really want 35 on my second receiver. But man, oh man, that's frustrating because those prices are too low.
Yeah, and that gives them plenty of room to attack the RB room now and get some value there. So then we've got Travis Etienne just went. Gridiron bought his Ben Burridge bought his first player. Will Day, the defending champ, has got Devon Achan $26 and Dalton Kincaid $14. And then our auto drafter P155272 has got Hurts, Barkley, Garrett Wilson, and Stephon Diggs. So it's like $131, but that's not bad if those guys stay healthy, although he will have to manage that bye week conundrum of having that stack of Barkley and Hurts.
Yeah, that's a lot.
I
guess you have the goal line back, though.
What's that?
I guess you have the goal line back, though.
Yeah, that's true. No matter what, you've locked in all the touchdowns.
You hope. And here comes Kenny Gainwell into the game on the 2-yard line.
Will Shipley.
No, don't hand it off. I played this game too long.
Oh. Right, see CJ Stroud off board $18. That seems like a bit of a par bid.
Mm-hmm. That's higher than I've seen him go, but yeah. I understand the optimism. That's where we are.
Yeah, no, I agree. So this is interesting because we saw this early. There was a bit of this, I guess, nervousness in the draft where we saw a lot of low bids, a lot of things go under the radar. People didn't want to spend the money. Then we've seen this peak of quite high bids come along, and now we're sort of meandering back downwards. So I wonder if this is sort of the next phase where there might be a few discounts on offer while people are sort of regrouping after getting their top guys, because everybody now has a player. Almost everyone has a receiver as well.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because the prices have been a little bit low. The price on Kincaid, I think, is even a little bit low. The price on Achan's a little low. There's a few overpays here, so that could be balancing things out. But at this point, it's pretty interesting that the prices are still a little cold, I think, and that means we're going to get squeezed here in a little bit.
I just got Joe Mixon for $17. I'm ecstatic for that.
That's a low number too. We're still not. The prices still aren't where they should be, but that's okay. We'll get there.
Yeah, we will. They'll start. The money will start to come off the board relatively soon. We got Ayuk now up, so someone did finally put Ayuk back on the board.
I'm not going a penny over 120.
Someone's just done max bid again.
So what is the problem? He did it again, 115.
Different person.
We're gonna have to roll it back.
I paused it just in time.
On the same player.
It's the Brandon Ayuk curse. So I think I got it before it went off.
Yeah, is this some kind of dare?
But the problem is I can't do anything while it's paused.
Yeah, the only thing you can do is back the player out or let it get sold and then
I'm just gonna have to
back it out.
Right. I don't know if we're being punked here. It's like
I think we're on. Yeah, we're in the middle of a practical joke, I think is what's going on.
I'm gonna put this to the chat now. If somebody does it again, I'm not undoing it.
I think that's a good thing to say.
Like, once is funny, two, it's just gonna be. It is quite funny. I will. I like a good joke, so I'll let that one. But the next time it gets Max Beard on Brandon Ayuk.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's it.
What are your thoughts on? I tell you what. Here's a question, and be careful of this because we are in a live draft. I don't want to give you a hindrance here, but maybe talk about some of the guys who have gone. Are there any of the guys that have gone in this draft who are sort of quote unquote your guys this season that you're investing more in than others, or are there? Are there anyone off the board that you think, oh, yeah, these are guys I'm going to invest in all formats of the game?
Not necessarily, no. So there's a couple guys that have been ending up on my team just because of price. Guys like Amari Cooper. Both the Houston receivers. People are a little concerned about that. I got to make sure that my kids are getting off the bus.
That's all right.
So yeah, unfortunately, I do have to. I can come back on in a couple minutes.
Yeah. You go do you. I can always invite someone else to come on if they want to come on and and fill the boats for a bit. And you go look after family. Family first is what we always say on this show.
Yeah, I'll be able to come right back. I just unfortunately I did not plan very well for this. This is their first day of school. So
that's early here. Here they got my kid's got another 3 weeks before he goes back. So
okay, yeah. we just started today, so I got to make sure they get off the bus. All right, but hey, I'll be back on here in maybe about 10 minutes, something like that.
Perfect. All right, cheers, mate. I'll see you in a minute.
Okay, and I have Travis Kelce. All right, cool.
All right, good way to finish.
All right, see you in a bit.
See you in a bit, mate. All right. So Brandon Ayuk now gets nominated again. So he is now on the now he's on the go. Yeah, I'm warning you all now. Do not max bid him. I'm not undoing this. And to those of you that are in the draft, people put third time lucky. I'm seeing some of these messages, not all. I do apologize. If any of you are in the chat and would like to come on, I did send the link, then feel free to come and fill the void. But I think this has been a really interesting draft. I feel like so far I'm pretty happy with what I've got, which is more than I felt on Saturday when I absolutely binned my auction, and I'll talk through that. But I do think it's been interesting. We've had these sort of pyramids where it's been low prices, high prices, and then it's gone back to some deals going on now. So it is really fascinating to see all of this sort of unfold in real time. I can't get the whole. I think what I'm going to do is shrink the screen because you can't see. You can't see all the players. Like you can't see me on there, which is why I got a bit confused. I was like, I couldn't when I didn't know I was up. So there we go. We can see it all a little bit better on the screen now. I kind of just zeroed in on the main bit, and hopefully I'll pull up some of the. I'll pull this menu up a little bit so you can see some of the prices that are going. And I'll keep dropping it down so you can see the board so far. So this is the sort of a good view of the boards. We can see only 4 quarterbacks have gone off the board so far. Almost everybody has a running back. A couple of teams don't have any. A couple of teams have 2. A lot of receivers gone off the board. 4 tight ends off the board. No one's got a kicker yet, which is good to see. So yeah, I think it's been a really interesting draft again to see. It started off cheap. There were some bargains flying around. A lot of the top players got nominated very early. It was almost like people were just nominating the first player and a higher value player up off the board. We didn't see a lot of variation from like the top players on the board, and that I find really interesting. And now we've got these sort of bit more range now where we're seeing some of these players with a slightly lower value coming off the board. So, I mean, I'm looking now, the next, so the highest projected price tag is like Isaiah Pacheco. So he is the sort of the next guy here. We're at the good sort of near top end of the receivers here with DK Metcalf. We've got a few guys sort of below who are here. So yeah, it's really interesting seeing this breakout and seeing who we're going to get next. It says one nom until my turn, so I better queue somebody up who I want. So yeah, we can see the people who are holding back money. Commissioner Casey's holding back some cash here. Everyone's online. First time all draft, I think. We've got 12 green lights, which is awesome. I'm going to put the link to the chat in here again. If people want to join, then they absolutely can. But I'm going to put it in here. I have to do it in the draft chat. There we go. So if any of you do want to come on the show for, I'd like to go on a podcast and live draft, then you absolutely can. But I'm having a lot of fun doing this. It's not easy. I'll be honest with you. It's definitely not easy. Talking to a guest, live drafting, and sort of talking through what's happened. So the audio version of this might not be great. So I recommend you go and watch the YouTube video. I'm always I'm half looking down my phone as well because I am doing bidding on my phone as well. So you're just making you all a little aware of that. Especially when it's players that I think are good value as well. I'm trying to get in there and get players. So I think we're into the early, I won't say the early throes of this, because I do think we are sort of getting into the key part of this. We're sort of like in those sort of middle round states now where we've got players who can really make a difference to your team, and it can be a bit boom or bust here. So I think the next sort of 4, 5, 6 players here on the board, I think are going to be really interesting that come off here. I think I'm being run up here on Deebo Samuel. So, Will, if you're listening, congratulations. You can have Deebo Samuel for 8 over par. I do like him. I was prepared to pay a certain price for him. I felt I was getting run up. So I'm not going to let my emotional side take a chance here. So I am definitely prepared to sting other people with players, as I did with Matt earlier with Jonathan Taylor. Keep your comments in. If you're watching this and you're not in the draft and you want to ask some questions, then feel free to throw some on here. I'd love to sort of get some take on what people are talking about, what people think of the draft so far. You can see the board. If you're watching this on YouTube, drop us a comment. Let us know what you think. Let us know who you think's having a good draft, who you think is not having as good a draft. And let us know what you think, because I think I'm keen to answer as many questions as I can, and Drew will be back in a minute, so he'll definitely answer some questions on what it is like to play auction. And if you think I've never played one before, what's all this madness? Or you want to ask us some questions on strategy, I'll be far more open about my strategy than probably Drew will be. But I'm also pretty confident and comfortable with what I do. So, and again, this league is, I'm a good host. I like to host a good shindig, and if I win all the time, people won't like that. So I'm trying to think, if you're listening to this on the audio, everyone's here, everyone's green dot, which is nice. 5 QBs have gone off the board. We have 12 running backs gone off the board. Isaiah Pacheco just gone off the board, $27. James is definitely stealing some value here when it comes to auction. He's going to have a lot of money left over. That's for sure. We have 15 wide receivers, 4 tight ends off the board. So we have a lot of players still to go, and there is a lot of room still to go in this draft. And I think we'll be drafting at least for another hour, maybe even an hour and a half. We're about 52 minutes into this, or 42 minutes. I forgot we started 10 minutes late. But we are starting to see most of the headline makers go, which is, I think we're going to get into the part now where you make a great draft. I think everyone's going to walk away with this with 2 or 3 stud players. Some might get a few more, some might get less, but then they'll have more bench players or more solidity in their flex. So to run through the team so far, Team 1, P1555272 has got Hurts, Barkley, Wilson, Diggs, and spent $131 on those. Next, our defending champ, Will Day. He's got Devon A. Chan, Debo Samuel, Don Kincaid. He has spent $71 on them. Ben Burridge Gridirony has just bought George Pickens. So he has spent $52 on Travis Etienne and George Pickens. AVFC JPS James has got Isaiah Pacheco, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and AJ Brown. He spent $100 on those players. It's good value. Crispy83 has got Jahmyr Gibbs, Josh Jacobs, Justin Jefferson, DK Metcalf, and spent $111. So it's in really good range here for the money spent so far. Chris Budge has got CJ Stroud, Breece Hall, and David Njoku for $101. I think that auto on Breece Hall hit the hole a little bit, but at least he's got a top running back to go for. So not a bad spot to be in. Matt Butler tried to run me up on Jonathan Taylor. It's got Josh Allen, Jonathan Taylor, and CeeDee Lamb. Spent $139 on those players. Paul Roberts has spent $105 on Christian McCaffrey and Bijan Robinson, so he's going to be waiting for a while. Drew, our auction expert, spent $93 on Kyler Murray, Jamar Chase, Brandon Ayuk, and Travis Kelce. Funny that he got Brandon Ayuk after all the issues we had with him live. Thandu UK spent $89 so far, and spent on Patrick Mahomes, Marvin Harrison, Puka Nacua, and Sam Laporta. That's really, really good sign there. Commissioner Casey's been really good here. Diligent business. Devontae Adams, Drake London, T. Higgins, spent $73. I've spent $98 on Kyron Williams, Joe Mixon, and Tyreek Hill. So it's pretty balanced. There's still a long way to go. Except for Matt, who has spent most of his money, in Crispy, who has also spent a fair bit, and P155272. These guys have got the lower end of the money. I think Commissioner Casey's got the most. Ben Burridge, Gridirony, and Will Day are defending champ. They've got the most money, and Crispy as well. So there's a good amount of money still to be spent. To explain the concept towards the end of the draft, so there is a lot of space still to go. You see all these spots we got to fill, and you think, wow, they've got through only this many players in 45 minutes. This is going to take 3 hours. When we start to get to the ends of it, a lot of the picks go very quickly. The dollar amounts are a lot less, but then also not to mention when the dollar amounts are less, but also when the teams start to fill up, there'll be less people bidding. But then also you get to a point where people are almost out of money. So a lot of picks go what we call auto pick, where effectively you just select a player and it automatically goes through and you don't get the time. So the last 30 to 40 picks actually tend to go very, very quickly. I saw Chris Budge. I didn't see he's actually got Dak Prescott, so he's got 2 quarterbacks. So the last 30 to 40 picks here really fly off the board. So if we're doing the maths here, and we've got 180 picks in this draft, and we are currently 17, 29. 33, 34, 55, 57, 59, 40. We're 41 into, so 139 picks left. So there is a long way to go. But having said that, it's a really good time to get involved. And this will start to speed up again as we go through. I can see that Ben is not going to let me have Michael Pittman. That's fine. I'm okay with it, Ben. You can have Michael Pittman. He let me have him. So, okay, I only had to pay $2 more with that last minute bid. Well done, Ben, for making me spend $2 more. But I'm very happy to have Michael Pittman on the team. That suits me down to the ground. I was a bit quiet there because I was bidding and I was hoping to get him there. And I'm bidding now for Lamar Jackson. He is currently on the block here. We'll see how much he goes for in this range. Matt's trying to run me up again. All right, Matt, I'll bite this time. I'll overpay for Lamar Jackson. It's fine. I don't have a problem with that. So just in a matter of seconds, I've just spent $48 on Lamar Jackson and Michael Pittman. So my auction is coming together. I've got a team of Lamar Jackson, Kyren Williams, Joe Mixon, Tyreek Hill, Michael Pittman. I feel pretty good about that. I still have a bit to go with my team and not a lot of money left. So I might be taking a back seat for a little while as this goes through. If there's any comments in the chat, please do feel free. I can't see comments on X, I don't believe. So I think if it is a case of you're sending them on X, I don't think, unless they fix that issue, I can see them on the live stream. So definitely send them through on YouTube, or do send them through other places, or Facebook. We're on there. Those are the ones I tend to be able to see. I'm just going through, see if there's any more questions. No, it doesn't seem to be. Drew will be back any minute. So recent players that have just gone. So Chris Olave's now up, so the bidding's starting to go quite intense on him. So we're 43 picks in. I bought the last 2 players. So I was counting them manually, and I've just seen there's a board that I can actually see how many picks have gone. So there is still 137 players to go. So there is a long way to go in this draft. So the format of this is 1 QB, 2 running back, 2 wide receiver, a tight end, and 3 flex. So it is, but there's only 5 bench spots. So it is deep in starting, not deep in bench. So should leave plenty of action for the waiver wire. This bidding for Chris Olave has probably been going on for about 4 minutes now. It's literally going up dollar by dollar. Oh, I get to nominate. I'm going to get to nominate, so I'm going to nominate someone really interesting, and I'm going to nominate. Oh, it didn't let me do it in time. I wasn't quick enough, so it's made me do Jane Waddle. That's fine. I'm I don't want to do it. So that's all good and dandy, and it'd be too expensive for what I want to do with the rest of my team. So I'm just checking. I think I have the most players, along with Chris Butch, 5 each. Several teams have 4. Several teams have 3. In fact, no one's 3. A lot of teams have 4. So I'll rate Matt Butler's 3, and 2 teams have 2. Opposite ends of the scale. One's got all their money tied up in running backs, and the other has got a nice spread diversity and has more money on the board than anywhere else because he's making everyone spend money, aren't you, Ben? You maybe spend $2 more on Michael Pittman, who I'd like those $2 back. I might charge them to you in person next time we go for lunch. Drew's back. Hi, Drew.
How we doing?
Well, we've moved on a little bit in this draft since you left. We're approaching the pick 50 now, so to explain that things will speed up at the very end of the draft. You ended up with some players as you left. Kyler Murray was someone who you got when you were picking your kids up. I bet they were thrilled. You pick it up and you're glued on your phone.
Well, do what I got to do, right?
I got busy in about 30 seconds and bought Michael Pittman and Lamar Jackson back to back. I did a bit overpay for Lamar Jackson, but I was okay with it. But I felt happy with Michael Pittman for what I got him for.
Yeah, I was. Murray's a poor man's Lamar Jackson. Hopefully he's going to be 85% of Lamar, and if he is, then I'm happy about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're in this sort of interesting period now where it's probably fair to say, and I'm just looking at the players before I say this, I don't think there's any sort of elite talent left. We've got a couple of potential RB1s left, but the bottom end of that, we haven't got many that will go up to the wide receiver 1 range. We've got a few QB1s still on the board. So this is the really interesting part where you sort of the meat and drink of your draft. For those that don't know about auctions, what's a good sort of view on a top line without giving your strategy away of tackling this portion of the draft? Now most of the studs are gone and the excitement's gone a little bit from the draft.
Well, I will say this room is actually very judicious with their cap space. Nobody out there really kind of going crazy. Only a couple teams have really spent a lot of money on any couple of players. For the most part, this room is pretty disciplined. So I'm actually kicking myself for passing a few of the deals earlier because things are going to heat up. So the way that I'm gonna attack it now is I'm trying to stay away from the players I want because I just know that there's going to be some money to burn here in the room, and things are going to get weird on a couple of players that probably shouldn't be as high. Speaking of weird, we've got Rachaad White about to crack the $30 barrier when Kyron Williams went for 31. So I think, that's what I'm talking about. There's money in the room. I'm not saying White can't live up to that number, but there's money in the room now. We might see a few random price spikes followed by some, $12 and $14 guys because people aren't interested.
Yeah, I mean, if you offer me the choice of getting Kyron Williams for $1 more than Rachaad White, I'm in. Like that seems a pretty good deal.
That is a direct relationship to people not spending early. So that's why we are where we are, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's interesting because he went for $2 more than Pacheco, which I like. But then you've got, there were a couple of steals. Like Aaron Jones went for $13, which I think is a really, if you're looking at some of these prices of these running backs, like I think 30. I mean, he had to get a bargain somewhere because he spent 62 on Breece Hall, which I think was an auto pick. But that's a good way of bringing it back because it kind of levels off your room a little bit now. Because he's gone 75 on his 2 running backs, but I think he's got one of the top 3 running backs, and he's got a really good contender for someone who, if it all comes together, could be a bottom end running back 1, or if not, a solid RB2.
Yeah, I was just on Twitter talking about that running back room the other day. It's interesting that people aren't more interested in Ty Chandler because Aaron Jones, I think, is going to be exactly what we want him to be. He's going to be a 12 to 15 touch guy. They don't want to load him up, and they want to keep him healthy throughout the year. So they're going to sort of keep him fresh. And I think that's going to be the way he's going to be most effective. So you're going to hope for a high fantasy point per touch total. But yeah, $13 is a really nice price for a guy who could bring you 1,100 total yards and 40 catches,
And I actually think now that touch range goes up with the JJ McCarthy injury, because I think they're not going to want Sam Darnold to throw the ball 35 times a game.
No.
He's never been able to do it. So, yeah, they might bring Ty Chandler in and split that role out, but I see the running backs getting 30. They could get up to 30 carries a game if the game script goes with them.
Right.
And so I think that increases his role, because even if they split that evenly, which they won't 50-50, he'll still be involved in the passing game. So I think, and especially with what you've got there with Darnold, I think they will keep it short and simple. And he does better throwing to those high percentage throws. So I actually think that Aaron Jones becomes a bit more of a fantasy up, but then I think Ty Chandler goes more up in the direction. I think they both now, with that injury, goes really, really sort of upwards. And actually, I'd almost be fading Jordan Addison as a result of that, because I actually think there's a lot of things to Jordan Addison. There's this injury, there's this court case, which I know you talk about on Twitter so much. There's just so much to not want to be part of Jordan Addison that I don't think I can take him anywhere anymore.
It's hard. It's going to have to be a pretty big discount at this point. Now, it sounds to me like he may have escaped a major injury. He might not get suspended this year, in which case maybe he's going to be a decent value, but we'll see. It's certainly, there's certainly a path to him playing all 17 games this year, but there are some hurdles he has to cross first. And of course, that's making his price, go down quite a bit. So,
yeah, and it is. Let's be fair, it is going down quite a bit. But this is why I talked about this twice. I talked about it on my show on Friday morning, and I talked about it on the Fantasy Wildcard Rewind show on Monday, where they kindly had me on with Hannah Rowland and Lewis Wood. And I talked about that Jalen Naylor for me is probably the best free sleeper in drafts right now, because you've got this uncertainty with Addison, with the injury, and also then with this potential suspension. He's going to win that wide receiver 3 job in the slot, and we know that Sam Darnold now is going to go with those high percentage throws. I just look at Jalen Naylor and think, hey, he's free. I'm grabbing him everywhere I can. What are your thoughts on Naylor?
Yeah, I had, it's funny that you should say that, because I really just started to think about him recently, because I wondered what was going to happen if for some reason Addison wasn't available. And as soon as I start thinking about that, he gets hurt. So yeah, what I struggle with on the whole Sam Darnold thing is, while I do feel like I can't let that happen.
No.
We're not letting Cup go for $22. So maybe I'm going to end up with him, and I'm totally fine. I needed one more receiver. Yes. All right. I just needed one more receiver, and I got him. Yeah. There we go. So yeah, I think that the thing with the Vikings is we assume that Kevin O'Connell is going to be able to get the most out of the offense. I tweeted out the other day that they've been in the top 10 in pass rate since he got hired. Their overall pass rate percentage has been in the top 6, I believe, both years. He's also top 10 in situation neutral pass rate when leading by 7 and when trailing by 7. So virtually every category, he leads the league in pass rate. So I think there's going to be plenty of opportunities there. I'm not sold on Darnold. I've always been a Darnold guy, which is kind of funny. So I should be excited for this opportunity. I'm just not sure. I think that you can write off some of the opportunities that he's had, and that means that maybe, San Francisco is more like you're putting him in a system that's conducive to his skill set, and he did okay. So I'm thinking like, well, I wonder if, all right, let's do this. So I'm wondering if he can get the most out of Darnold. I just don't know, and I'm not sold. So that makes me worry about a guy like Naylor, because if he can't consistently get the ball to Justin Jefferson, then we've got TJ Hawkinson coming back in 4 or 5 weeks. I'm just a little nervous that he's going to be able to distribute to 3 or 4 targets like Kirk Cousins could.
Yeah, that I agree with, but I think there is this vacuum where if something happens with Addison and TJ Hawkinson is not back,
I do agree with that.
Yeah, there isn't a lot of option. So someone has, and then it becomes, from a scheme perspective, really easy to put 2 on Jefferson, and there's got to be someone who can get open, and so that's where I think I'm not sitting here and projecting that Jalen Naylor is going to be an absolute league winner, because that's just silly.
Right.
Well, I look at him and I think, hey, here is a guy who, for 5 or 6 weeks at the start of the season, it could all go right, and then you get this. Well, what if it does? And I'm not saying he's going to be the next Puka Nacua, because again, that's absurd. But Puka Nacua is a player who was in the right situation at the right time with the right talent level for that scheme. And I feel like Jalen Naylor, he was in there last season. We got to see what he could do. And in flashes, not in huge amounts, but he's an incumbent in that scheme, so he knows the scheme. You've got not a lot of options in that offense to pass to, and then all of a sudden you've got this vacuum of targets. And I just think perfect storm, chaos theory. What if he ends up with 10 targets a game?
Yeah, I see the path. I see what you're saying. It's not, to me, it doesn't scream likely path, but I get it. And certainly in deep leagues, you got to think about it. These are the kinds of questions you have to ask.
It's definitely not likely, but I would say it's more within the realms of possibility than, say,
I catch
Sam
you.
Darnold being a top 15 quarterback in fantasy football this season.
We get a lot of people who are very, very confident in Darnold. I am definitely not one of them.
No. No. But, I mean, it's interesting because he's on the same sort of career pathway as Baker Mayfield in a lot of ways. Started to bounce around the league a little bit, it's starting to not really go for him in a lot of ways. And but if he lands in the right spot with the right opportunity, and this very well could be for him, this could be a really good opportunity for him to land on his feet and to get that final chance that Baker did, that Geno Smith did, that I think it could potentially work for them.
Yeah, and we certainly have seen evidence that when you're in the league longer, it matters. It does matter, and specifically at that position. So, I'm not planting my flag, but I'm open to it. I just drafted Jefferson because I got the number 8 pick in the Kings Classic this past weekend.
Yeah.
And I took Jefferson with the 8. I was happy to get him in the 8th pick. And then, of course, the McCarthy news comes out. But, yeah.
I was pretty happy with my Kings Classic snake. Now, I absolutely bombed the auction, Drew. I'm a bit embarrassed. I unfortunately tied all my money up in Amon-Ra St. Brown and Tyreek Hill because I couldn't let them go for the prices that they were going for. But that did hamstring me for the rest of the draft. So I basically struggled with clawing that back a little bit. So I have like a decent starting team, but the bench is very, very weak, I think it's fair to say.
Well, are you guys are a 14 team as well?
Yeah, 14 team as well.
Yeah. Well, that's what I did. I didn't spend any money on my bench. I don't even care. I don't care at all. I'm like, you cannot have a good starting lineup and a good bench. It's just not possible in that format.
No, but
So I just didn't worry about it.
No, but I did have to go a bit thin as well towards the end of the starting lineup because I had run out of money. But I must say my snake team turned out all right. Now keep in mind I was picking 14. My roster turned out in the snake at 14. Jonathan Taylor at 14. I was delighted to get Josh Allen, James Conner, Chris Olave, Chris Godwin, Jameson Williams, Dallas Goddard, Zamir White, Jacoby Myers, Tyler Algier, Gabe Davis, Ricky Purcell, Deshaun Watson, Braylon Allen, AJ Dillon, and Noah Fant.
I heard an AJ Dillon in there.
Yeah, not AJ Dillon.
At the end?
Yeah, right at the end, last pick.
Yeah, he's on the wire in one of my Kings leagues, and I kept looking at him like, should I pick him up? Should I pick him up? I just don't know. I had him last year, and he was so frustrating. But they didn't move on from him for a reason, so there's got to be some touches there.
That's my viewpoint. I just think, look, he's a backup. If something happens there to Josh Jacobs, then let's see what happens, right? It's just those guys at the back end of the draft, last pick, I fully expected to put them on the waiver wire in 2 weeks. My timeline for them is short. But if something happens between now and week 2, week 3, then with Josh Jacobs, then you kind of hit the lottery there, because if something happens with Josh Jacobs, they're not going to give the job to Marshawn Lloyd.
Yeah, and they made some comments about that too, about Dillon being available and being present and being. Am I about to get a ridiculous? That's a silly price right there, folks.
Oh wow, yeah, $18.
That's weird. I'm scared. Did I miss something? Is he hurt?
No, I think
that's people a $22 player.
People are being cautious.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, that's great. I wanted one more receiver, and I got him.
Yeah.
So, I forget what we were talking about.
AJ Dillon.
Yeah. I don't know. They definitely kept him around for a reason. He is a grinder. I mean, I understand what they like about him, but gosh, he was bad last year. Just bad. So I don't know what that reason is. If they see something out of Lloyd, I don't know, but maybe they're not seeing what they want to see. So who knows?
No. Well, I think there's a bit of that. All right. I got the price up on Kamara enough. I'm going to let James have him for par. He was going far too cheap.
I thought he might go cheaper than that. Yeah, he's still.
Yeah, I wasn't letting that happen. I like Alvin Kamara this year. I think you're buying same. But I couldn't let him go for like 17. I was prepared to take him for anything under $25. But to push him up to 28, I'm happy with that. I have to, because I think he's a top 6 RB this year. If it all breaks right and he stays healthy, in a PPR format, I think that happens. So I can't let him go cheap. So to get him up to the near Kyron Williams price, I'm happy with that. I feel like it shouldn't be just. I feel like it's not just you that should be pushing prices up. I feel like I should be doing my bit as a host every now and again, make people spend.
That's all right. That's all right. I would have bid on Keenan, but I just drafted him this weekend, so I'm trying to spread my
diversify the portfolio. I like to say, yeah, I'm with you on that, 100%. What would you say if you were sort of analyzing this, and we're now 60-ish picks in? Would you say is sort of the biggest overpay and the best value so far?
Well, overpay, I think Brees has got to be up there. The Josh Allen thing, I don't know if that was a mistake
Yeah.
But I can't imagine he meant to pay 44 for Allen. If he did, that's a huge overpay. The top guy is in the mid 20s. So those two aside, let me see here. Don't want to crush anybody here in the draft. But let's see here. I'm not sure I'm a huge fan of Taylor at 50. I think that he's a $42 guy, maybe.
He did admit on the comments that he was trying to bid me up.
Well, I think that goes under karma right there, right?
Yeah, because I read it and knew that was what was going on, and I wished to see how far I would let it go.
Well, yeah, I think as far as a great deal, boy, there was a lot early. I think that AJ Brown for 34 is hard to argue against. I think George Pickens for 15 is low, although I wouldn't call that one of the best deals in the draft.
Especially if Ayuk ends up there, then that it could be one of those.
I think Evans for 18 is a really nice price. I would have bid on that, but I was otherwise occupied. I think Rashee Rice for 16 can end up being really nice.
Good gamble, isn't it? Really, that one. It's like it's not silly money to where it's going to hamstring your whole auction, but it is going to be, interesting to see how that plays out. I know you've done loads of work, and hopefully those listening to this can who don't follow you should follow you, because you've been providing lots and lots of updates of Rashee Rice this offseason. What was the latest odds you gave? 60-40 he gets suspended?
Well, yeah, that's about a month ago, though, and what I've been saying is that every day that goes by oh shoot, I'm on the clock. Okay, I knew what I was going to do here. Every day that goes by that he doesn't get suspended is another day closer to me saying that he's going to play the whole season. So I really, the odds are just slowly creeping up. I now feel that he's now a favorite to play the entire season. But I've always said all along, hey, he's going to play 12 plus games. I really felt confident about that. But now I'm starting to think, boy, he's going to end up playing the entire season. I mean, I think that's very, very much in play at this point.
Yeah. I think that's a fair cop. And I think you're right. It's starting to trend that way, that it's definitely more likely than not that he does that. And that's it's definitely interesting, isn't it, that case, because I do think he gets a suspension at some point. I think we can pretty much all agree on that's something that we can expect to happen. But whether it's this season and next season, and if you're not surprised the front office are almost forcing him not forcing him to make him sit out this year.
Say that again.
Are you not surprised the front office aren't just willing to say, "Hey, look, just take 6 games now, and we'll have you for the playoffs"? Like, do you not think that there's?
No, the only I don't think so. Only because in the past teams have attempted to do that kind of thing, and then the NFLPA goes berserk and says no, that's not part of the bargaining agreement. You can't impose unilateral suspension. Plus, I think that it's also about, we don't know exactly what he's going to end up with out of this case. And what I've said all along is the fact that this all went silent is a little bit weird, because I thought we would hear about a court date or something like that. And I haven't heard about a court date. And I'm wondering if they haven't indicted the case yet. So I don't know how many of the folks in the league are listening are from the UK, but in the US, you have to get, after the police agency files a complaint, then there's a grand jury of people who look at the case and decide whether or not to actually indict the charges and formally file them as felonies. So I'm wondering if they haven't indicted yet. And if that's the case, maybe we're seeing negotiations going on behind the scenes, or maybe they have a lot of evidence they have to compile and present, and the grand jury's just backed up. Keep in mind, this is in Dallas. Who knows how long the wait is for the grand jury? So I don't know. I don't know what the reason is, but there's got to be a reason we haven't heard anything, and we've heard nothing. So It's pretty weird. It's pretty weird.
Yeah, it is very weird to see that happen. And yeah, I would like to say that I am surprised that they do drag their feet in these cases. Like, I would have thought that by now, especially of what's happened in the last few years with regards to incidents in the NFL, that they would expedite some of these. And I appreciate that you can't circumvent the legal process, but I would have thought that the NFL, and maybe it is their job to stay neutral, and that's probably a good thing that they are. But I'm just surprised that some of these cases aren't expedited and dealt with quickly. And I think the Jordan Addison one, given what's happened with, like, say, Henry Ruggs, given what's happened with the rookie who died as a result of a traffic incident, who was Jordan Addison's teammate the week before that incident happened, that the NFL wouldn't be out there making some sort of example of these cases. And I appreciate they've got to go through some sort of legal representation, but I think the facts of the Addison case, and you're the lawyer, so I'm asking you this, is it not as cut and dry then potentially with Addison as...
Well, that's the issue. It rarely is as cut and dried as we think it is. I often get cases like this where it seems like it's pretty straightforward, but you don't play the process out by not doing your work, you know. So you can, it's easy to say, hey, look, he was asleep behind the wheel, he's obviously this and that. But you got to go through the process of getting a chemical test, whether that's a breath test or whether that's whether that's a urine test, a blood test, whatever the case may be. You got to go through that process. And part of the reason that you make them go through the process as a defense attorney, they got to do the right thing. They've got to do the case the way it's supposed to be done. And so you can't walk around that stuff, because if they make a mistake or they don't keep the evidence right, or maybe the evidence isn't as strong as we think it is, because we've only heard media reports. We haven't heard anything about why, about what exactly the evidence is. So it may be simple. But it's also possible that it's not. And you don't practice law with, it's probably this or it's probably that. You just check it out. And unfortunately, we got to go through the process. Now, maybe they're working, again, just like Rice, maybe they're working on a deal behind the scenes and we don't know about that. But, that's kind of stuff that I can't guess about. But we'll find that out soon enough on Addison. His first court date, though, is until the 7th. And Rashee Rice, as far as we know, doesn't have a court date yet.
Yeah. So it sounds like the Rashee Rice one is a far more complicated case, and that's probably why it's taking its time. He is obviously, there's a lot more, and it's that's probably fair enough. There is a lot more complexity to that case. There's a lot of evidence that has to be gathered, and that does make it perhaps a little bit more tricky to do. Whereas the Addison one is, are there any witnesses? I assume, as you say, the medical test, they are what they are, right? It's the facts of the case, but at least the facts are, once they're gathered, it's pretty clear cut. He was either under the influence or he wasn't. There's no grey area there. There's a specific line that's drawn, and he either measured over or under that line. So I guess it makes sense that one would come up. Do you think potentially that the NFL, with all of these incidents that have happened in the last few years, as I sort of alluded to, might make more of an example of Jordan Addison and or things in the future, maybe in the next collective bargaining agreement?
It's possible, though. They have some pretty set standards in the NFL substance abuse policy that are, I believe, they've been around for a little while. So I think they're pretty happy with them. Alcohol-related offenses are 3 games. I'm not sure they want to go above 3 games to start. Your first offense should be a 3-game. But then after that, aggravating factors can make that go up. And more often than not, the aggravating factors would be prior instances. So, that's what I think that 3 is a fair start. And I think it would be hard to bargain that upwards, if that makes any sense, to make the players agree to go above 3.
Yeah. Okay.
To start out. So I'm not sure that, I understand your point. And I think it's a valid point, but I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah, because I just think that the fact that there are more and more of these incidents now, for me, I think it's ludicrous that players don't have drivers. Like,
I don't get that.
I like, it's not an expensive thing to do. We see lawyers drive around in Lincolns, and I know that's a very throwaway sort of topical reference and pop culture reference, but it is seen, and it is something that does happen. That we can't do the same for NFL players. Like, they have drivers, and like, I personally am all for players cutting loose. I think they work hard. They should be allowed to cut loose. Just get him a driver. Like, it just seems to be there should be a number on a card. Like, hey, we've driven. I didn't expect to go and have a few. I've had a few. There's a number you call, and someone comes and gets your car and drives you around.
Well, we do, that's the silly part about it. It used to be like, oh, it's hard to get a cab or whatever. And then, oh, you got to spend $600 on a limo. I mean, I get all that. They have the money, first of all. But second of all, now with Uber, there's zero excuse. Zero. Yeah. You just want to get behind your car and go fast, get behind the wheel and go fast because you're young and making bad decisions. There's no excuses anymore when you can pick up your phone and order an Uber. There just isn't. So you're absolutely right. And with the amount of money they make, they could have a car service for a couple $100 to go out.
Yeah. And that's the thing. And if there's a group of players, I mean, if you're worried about the money, not they will be, is you can split it. It's just, it's just one of those things. Yeah, I hope that the NFL starts to crack down. We've seen in the last, and these aren't all due to alcohol. The kid who lost his life, the rookie out of Minnesota, he obviously didn't lose his life because of alcohol or anything like that. It was a road traffic incident. Same can be said for Dwayne Haskins, unfortunately. But we're seeing players, unfortunately, getting these. We're seeing players dying as a result of traffic incidents, and then we're seeing players causing traffic incidents that are causing lives, as what happened with Henry Ruggs. I just think there needs to be a line drawn, because you don't hear about this in Major League Baseball or basketball or ice hockey in the NHL. You don't hear about this in other sports. It just seems to be a problem, and this goes all the way back to. This goes back years. There's always been some sort of incidents with DWIs and DUIs with players. I'm trying to think of the Browns player a couple of years ago. Who's the one who always got suspended?
Josh Gordon.
Josh Gordon. Yeah.
What are we on here, Tank?
Yeah, Tank Dell. So there's always so many players that this has happened. It's a historical, almost cultural problem that we do need to. I think the NFL does need to start to look at this and get on, and get it under control, because it is going to cause widespread problems going forward in the NFL for sure if they don't. Appreciate that we're just sort of talking here. We are 80 picks into this draft now. The picture becomes a lot clearer. We have one player Ben, who has $123 to spend. Everybody else has got 15, 12, 43, 25, 42, 35, 37, 31, 59, 56, and 37. So Ben's going to get some either big steals, or he's going to make people pay top dollar for players. On that strategy then, and I don't want to help Ben out too much because he is a shark. If you're sitting here and you have got over twice the amount of money of everybody else in the room, what would you be doing here to sort of maximize that advantage?
Boy, that's tough, because it doesn't seem that there's enough top players left in the room to really maximize that money right now. But I think you just have to go and isolate. There's 4 guys I want in this draft pool left. They're X, Y, Z. I want those 4 guys. And then just go get them, and don't worry about the price, because it's tempting to say, well, I waited this long because I didn't like the price on X player or Y player, but you're past that now. Now you're just in the draft, and you just need players. So you just have to go get the best players left, pick the 4 that you want, and go get them.
Yeah. So I'll just quickly run. I think that's definitely good mine. He's just spent $13 on Jaden Reed, so he is starting to spend that money. That the bats have flown out of the wallet in Ben's case, and he is starting to spend that money a little bit in recent picks. He has picked up in the last 6 picks. Brock Bowers for $11, Jaden Reed for $13. So he is starting to spend the money a little bit now. So we're starting to see that. I'll just run through the team so far. P155272 has got $15 left to spend all this money on Hurts, Barkley, Montgomery, Wilson, Diggs, McBride, Neighbors. He's still got 2 flex spots of defense and then his bench to fill. Will Day, our defending champion, has $12 left. He's got Richardson, Achan, White, Samuel, Olave, Kincaid, Waddle, and Mostert. He's got his flex and his defense left to fill, and then he goes on to his bench. We have Ben, Gridiron UK, Burrow, Etienne, Pickens, Reed, Bowers. He's got 2 on the bench, so he has spent some money on a second QB, but he does have $104 left, so he can afford the luxury of having a top second. And I guess with Burrow and his injury record, that's probably not a bad way to spend money, especially if you've got it loose in the auction. James, AVFC, JPS has got Pacheco, Kamara, St. Brown, Ingram, and Evans. It's a team I like a lot. It's got $43 left to spend, still needs to get that QB. Crispy has got $25 left to spend, still needs a QB, but it's got Gibbs, Jacobs, Jefferson, Metcalf, Goddard, Rice, Walker, and Flowers. So just a defense and a QB to get, so it's got plenty of money to do that. Chris Budge's got $42 left. He's got Stroud, Hall, Jones. He's put his back quite nicely considering he spent a lot of money on Hall. Allen, Kirk, Njoku, McLaurin, and Dak Prescott. So premium spent a lot of money on his second RBB. He only has the 2 flexes and the defense to go, so he has got plenty of money left to fill that. This is the time that Matt Raider Butts will start to come alive. He's got Allen, Taylor, Henry, Lamb. That has cost him $165, $35 left to spend, but he has got a lot of his team still to build. He's only got 4 players. Paul, PR Falcons UK, has got Williams, McCaffrey, Robinson, Cooper, Dell, Kittle, Stevenson. So just 2 flex in defense. He's got $24 left. You, Drew, have got Murray, Cook, Harris, Chase, Ayuk, Kelsey, Cup, Smith, JSN. Just your defense to go and your bench. You got $17 left. Thandu UK, Mahomes, Hubbard. It still needs an RB. Harrison, Nicoas, Laporta, Moore, Andrews, and Dunze. So just defense and RB, $59, plenty of money to do that. Krista Casey, Love, Connor, Adams, London, Pitts, Higgins, Collins, still needs an RB, a flex, and a defense, $56. And me, I've got Jackson, Williams, Mixon, Hill, Pittman, Swift. I need a tight end, 2 flex, and a defense, but I do have $37 left, and that's a lot of names I've read out. And then since then, TJ Hawkinson went for $2. So a lot of players, and Keenan Cole, George Kittle went for $13, and Coleman went for $6. So, Drew, how are you feeling about your running back room at this stage of the draft?
I mean, I'm never excited about my running backs. The way I auction, I just really try to get one guy in the mid to upper 20s, fill in one other guy in the teens somewhere that I know is going to touch the ball a lot. So I did that with Cook for 27 and Harris for 14. I don't love either guy, but they're the prices I want to pay because I'm sinking all my money into receiver because I've spent looks like 60 for 87 plus 26. Yeah, I've spent $113 on receivers so far. So, and if you add Kelsey in there, I've spent $129 on pass catchers. So I'm generally going to be super thin at running back. So I don't love my running back room, but I love my team.
Okay. And if you had to pick a team out there that wasn't yours, that you're loving a little bit, who would it be?
Let's see. I like let's see, team 2 looks pretty good.
So defending champ, Will Day.
Oh, well, he looks like he knows what he's doing. I think Crispy looks pretty solid. I don't know if I love Purdy there as your QB1, but looks solid otherwise. Let's see. Yeah, there's a couple of these teams that need some players. Boy, that Falcons UK team with that running back room, and then Cooper and Dell and Kittle, that's might be tough. They need Caleb Williams to come through, but that's a tough team if they get. And then the one team with the 2 going bully tight end with Andrews on the board is pretty interesting. Still has some good players. And what I found interesting was he went and got Rome Duns with DJ Moore. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was quite an interesting tactic for sure. I wasn't expecting that one to happen. And 2 tight end and 2 receivers from the same. But he got such a steal on Marv that it has worked out. Although Chuba Hubbard, I mean, he's your RB for maybe a month. So he's going to need to spend.
He's going to need some running back somewhere.
Yeah, but he's got money left. The good thing is he's got $59 and he only has his defense, his bench, and that RB. So he can go big on. And I'm looking at who's left. I mean, there's no one there that screams RB1 potential, but
no.
If he can spend the money on that room and if he spends that money and he bolsters that room. Oh, here we go. The first defense is off the board. Was this you? Did you nominate the 49ers?
I did. I know somebody's going to pay $2 for him, maybe even $3. So let's get him out there, right?
I was about to ask you, like, why?
Well, because if somebody's going to let me have him for $1, great. If somebody's going to pay $2 or $3, even better.
Wow. Okay. I wasn't expecting that at this stage of the draft. We are getting close to 100 picks. I'm going to let you go in a minute, Drew, because you have been more than gracious.
I actually was going to say I got to go in 3 minutes. I got to get the kids to the eye doctor. So
you've been.
I will be finishing on my phone.
Well, then let's take that time to talk about where people can find you and where they can engage in your content. And hopefully, they've really enjoyed this time. The lights just randomly got off in this room, so we need to find out what happened there. But yeah, why don't you tell everyone where they can find you, where all your content is, and your Patreon as well, which is fantastic. I'm a Patreon of yours, so where they can find that great content.
You are, and I really appreciate that. Yeah, you can find my stuff in a number of different places. My writing is over on footballguys.com. My show is called The Auction Brief, and it seems like we got a lot of savvy auction folks in here. If you're not listening to my show, I'm sure you'll love it. It's almost totally focused on auction stuff, although I do have guests on, and we talk about player evaluation and stuff like that on the show. My Patreon's called The Fantasy Football Lawyer, and that's $4 a month. And again, a lot of content over there. That's the only place you can find my rankings and some of my inside tips on legal stuff. I always drop the legal stuff on the Patreon first, and then I bring it to Twitter or the auction briefs afterwards. So that's where you can get the jump on everyone. And then on Twitter, it's Drew Davenport FF. So thanks a lot for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Oh, mate, always a pleasure. We'll do this again at some point. I really appreciate you being part of this and giving your insights. And yeah, I must say it's been an absolute pleasure drafting and talking with you live as we're doing this as well. So a real pleasure. I will say that you dropped an episode on your Patreon with Dave Richard. That was absolutely top notch and well worth the $4 a month to subscribe. So make sure you do check that out. But as always, a pleasure. I look forward to seeing how your team ends up and playing against you this year.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks a lot.
Hey, man, take it easy.
All right. See you, bud.
All right. So you're left with me until hopefully the conclusion of this. We'll see how we get on here. Through this. So it's been a really interesting draft. We are coming up to near enough 100 picks. The final 80 will go a lot quicker than we would be pushing through. I just landed Chris Godwin. Slight overpay, but I'm good with that with my team. It does take me almost out of money. I got $12 left, but I only have a tight end at defense, and then I have my bench to fill. So I feel pretty good about where my team is structured. This team will start to this draft will start to move quite quickly through the remaining picks. I recently read them all out. We're starting to sort of again get into the end game of this. James managed to get his QB1 in Jane Daniels, which is great. So he's really cemented that team. We heard Drew's favorite teams here. So again, we are in this phase now where most of the top players are gone. There are a few There are a few players here that still have money. If I look at the highest projected values, most of them are running backs left. Devin Singletary is still worth $20. He's the highest projected player. The next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 highest players are in terms of value are running backs. Lots of running backs left. That sort of RB3 range. A few tight ends left. The QBs are flying off the board at this stage. So we are sort of getting into the end game. We'll be getting up to 100 picks made, so that'll put us in the final 80 picks. What I do like to do when we get to the final 50 picks is shorten the clock from 30 seconds to 10 seconds, just to sort of speed it up a little bit. So I'm going to put that in the chat now. If there's anyone watching on YouTube or watching anywhere else and you've got some questions, please feel free to fire them off. Right, so I've made that notice. It just speeds up the last bit of the draft. We're all sort of drafting our benches at that stage. Everyone's going for really cheap, sort of $1 or $2. So there isn't really much left to sort of pick up on getting defenses and bench players. So shortening the clock for the final 50 picks doesn't seem to make too much of an issue here. I won't be picking for quite a while now. I've sort of maxed out my team. I do have a tight end. I need to buy at some point, but I'm pretty happy with the team I've got. Probably would like to have maybe 10 more bucks in my pocket, but I'm not that unhappy with the way it's all shaked down. I'd probably spend a little bit more on Godwin and $2 more on Pittman and $4 more on Jackson. So that sort of all adds up. But I'm quite happy with how this is shaken down. If you're watching this, I want to hear your thoughts in the chat. What are your sort of favorite picks so far? What are the sort of standout teams? What would you have done differently? Would you pick an auction team next year? Is there something that you'd rather get involved in? How would you know how to do it? I'm really keen just to get a bit of comments here as I'm going through. What I might do is also just to stop the rambling, because this could go on potentially, and I'm just looking at this like another 45 minutes or so. Is I might cut the stream at about the 2-hour mark. We'll see where we are, because I'm just conscious of the fact that me talking for an hour on my own and just going through this might be a lot for some people, and we're 2 hours in, which is quite a long show. And also the light went off in my room where I'm in, and I can smell potentially a bit of smoke, so I should probably go and investigate that at some point as well. You notice I'm not always looking at the screen as I'm talking. It's because I'm sort of keeping an eye on the auction and bits going on. We just hit 100 picks made, so we'll stick around a little bit longer. We're starting to see these teams fill in, especially the teams that don't have players. We see everyone now has a quarterback starting. Everyone has the 2 running backs. Everyone has the 2 wide receivers. So we're starting to get into the end game. The final sort of 79 picks of this are not many people have got starting spots to see. We've got, I think, no one has actually filled their team, but that's because only one defense has gone. So most teams only need sort of 1 or 2 players to fill their team. So we're now at that sort of nice in-between space of just getting to the end of the draft. If I'm looking at the players left that are sort of quite notable, as I said, mostly running back. The top wide receivers left Hollywood Brown, who's going to be out for 6 weeks, so he went for $5. Every receiver now is effectively on the hook now for just $1 as a projected. So there's not much money expected to be spent among receivers. So no top receivers left here. Still a few tight ends worth a pinch of salt going on the board. And again, we still have those running backs. Still have those running backs on the board here, expected to go. So we're seeing money be spent here. Austin Eckler just went for $7. I think that was an auto pick. The guy in seat 1 who occasionally goes in auto, he did drop a message in the chat to say he's in a holiday, so he's got spotty reception, and that's proving it to be a little bit difficult for him. So hey, those things happen. I'm curious to see. There's no more comments. I was hoping we'd get a few more comments. We've had like over 1,000 people on the stream, which is just amazing to see. And thank you so much for the support. So while the screen's up and we're going through, I'll go through some, I guess, pseudo housekeeping. The listener leagues, I talked about them earlier. Still 3 spots in our listener leagues. So we had over 160 at the start of this. We're down to just 3. That's in a tiered PPR, so different points per PPR. So find it on our Twitter. You'll see it should be our most recent posts, the form to fill that in. It'd be great to have you and great to have you play alongside and be part of our community. Prize to the winner, which is a custom t-shirt and a spot in our Champion of Champions. And who knows, maybe I'll pick that league to do a live draft next if I do another one of these. So great opportunity to meet some wonderful people, and you can see from this league just how even Drew was very complimentary of this group of people. So our leagues are full of very competitive people who are great people, great human beings, but also just people who really get into the spirit of the events that they enter and are very good. So if you're in for that sort of challenge, it would be great to have you here and taking part in all of that. So we've got that. The next milestone, if we fill those 3 spots, we will get to £7,000 donated for Crohn's and Colitis UK. That is a phenomenal achievement. I never thought we'd raise that kind of money. So we're really close. We're literally like £15 or something away from it. So help us fill those spots. It would be really helpful to us for that. And it will really allow us to celebrate in style that ability to have raised a lot of money for a condition that's affected my life, my wife's life, and lots of people as well. So please do give generously. Please do join in. Again, £6.50 per league, so per team. So just 3 spots left. It'd be great to have you there for that. And it'd mean the world to me for you to donate to this cause and to play along, and I look forward to playing everyone. So help us fill this league. Hopefully we'll fill it really, really soon. I've entered, I sent a tweet today about Joes with Pros. So you have the ability, or Pros with Joes, the ability to play with me. We're raising money for Crohn's and Colitis Foundation, who are actually based in New York, because it's an American organization, American charity contest. So they asked that we do an American charity, so that's fine. So same principle. Every dollar that you donate gives you 1 entry into the chance to draft with me. We draft a team together. So I really hope you do. I'll put a link in the show notes that will go out in the podcast and also the uploaded video to this. Just to let you know, so on how that kind of works is, if you draft with me, whoever the winning person is, I'll make sure we do a text exchange on WhatsApp, wherever you are in the world. So we'll talk a lot. You can pick my brain. I'll give you a copy of my rankings. and we'll just talk, and you can ask me questions about how I do roster construction. I'll probably ask you some questions. But we'll get to know each other. We'll become best buddies, and we'll win this thing together. So I'm really looking forward to drafting with somebody. I really hope we have the opportunity to do that together. So yeah, it'd be great. So to do that, follow the links. It's you have to register, and then it's a every dollar you donate, you get one entry into drafting with me. So if you've done $10, it's 10 entries. So it'd be really good to have you there. And even if you don't want to play with me, but you just want to donate, please do. This disease has taken so much from me and my family that I really hope we can find the ability to just keep funding the research. They've made some great strides just in the past year with regards to Crohn's and colitis. So and the causes for this condition and what it does. So yeah, everything that you can do will be really massive for this. It doesn't matter if it goes to a US charity or a UK charity. Everyone's fighting the same battle here. So could really do with everyone helping out here. And yeah, I just love playing fantasy football and loving the opportunity to just play with people. Please do give us the opportunity to do that. And yeah, I'd love to just, and effectively you get access to me. And if you like how I do things, or you want to know more about how I draft, how I construct things, this is a great opportunity to do that. So please, it'd be an absolute pleasure. And please do enter that. I'd love to raise a significant amount of money for Crohn's Colitis Foundation in New York to go along with the money that we've raised for Crohn's Colitis UK. As I said, we're hitting that £7,000 mark. Listener leagues are all either in flight or they all have dates ready to go for that. So you'll have the opportunity to draft if you're in them already quite soon. There's been some monster bids in terms of their relative value so far in this draft. In the recent picks, Jonathan Brooks went for $16, Jameson Williams $12, Brian Thomas $13, Christian Watson $13, and so the current state of play here, looking at dollar amounts, are these are dollar amounts remaining: $8, $9, $59. That's Ben, who's got loads of money left, but he's starting to fill in the draft. $18, $18, $18, $14, $18, $17, $27, $11, $12. So we are really getting to this end game now. Drew's just bought Zach Moss for $7. The Jets are up. The mighty New York Jets. We'll see who's going to bid for that DST. So we are in the end game. We're coming up to 2 hours on this stream. What I'm going to do is probably give it another sort of 10 picks or so, and then might call this a day, and then I'll share the draft board on Twitter, because to be honest, I'm kind of 2 hours I respect the people that can stream for like 4 or 5 hours, but this while drafting is really taxing, and hosting a guest, one of the sort of a token hardest episodes I've probably ever done in a lot of ways. But I've loved it. I've loved every minute of this. I think it's been really insightful. I hope you've learned a lot from Drew and from everybody who's taken part. I hope if you're drafting, you've really enjoyed watching yourself draft live. But I'm just looking now. I'm looking at the teams left. Nobody has more than 3 spots of their starting roster left to pick, and most of those are defense. So hopefully in the next few minutes we'll get to that. We'll get to that sort of 2 or 1 spot. We'll see some complete teams. In fact, Ben's got his first. He's got the most money left, but he's actually got the most complete team. He's got $50 left to spend on just 3 bench spots. So I reckon Ben's probably going to have some money left over. But he can go ham. He can pretty much just spend. He can pick 3 players he wants, spend $15, and he'll be able to bid everyone out of the room. In fact, yeah, $15 is the max bid. So he could literally, except for Thandu UK, he's the only one that could sort of match that. And he's just bought Jake Ferguson, so he can spend $20 per pick and go ham. So yeah, we're going to see yeah, we're going to see money go out of the room here pretty quickly. We're getting close to the 130 pick mark, which is 50 picks left. And to be honest, it's so quicky. I couldn't even really comment on what happens because it's literally instant, and I'll need my brain for that. So I will cut it off at that stage. Plus, I'm in other leagues, and people are probably begging me to go picking those, which I will do after this draft for sure. But this has been a blast. This has been so much fun. I've really enjoyed doing this live. I hope you've enjoyed it. Again, if you're watching this on the audio, or if you're listening to this on the audio version, it probably hasn't been the cleanest or the best audio you've ever listened to, and I can definitely sort of appreciate and understand that. This is definitely more a video show. Hopefully, you've popped over to the video and watched it, and hopefully you've listened to it. You've seen this as a live draft, and you get the views from there, because I think that you'll get a lot of value out of watching this back and learning a lot. And hopefully you take away from this video the opportunity to say, hey, that looks really good. I really want to do an auction draft. And let's try and work out a way that we do an auction draft in person for more people next year. I think that would just be amazing. And I think it's something that we need to make happen. And let's get auction drafting really sort of going across the UK, because it's a format that's definitely not played quite as much as it should have been, and I'd love to see more and more people playing it, and I really like to see people make the most of it. So Ben with the most money looks like he's going to be the first team complete. I've got to nominate a player now, so I didn't get it in time, so Romeo Dobbs. I'm seeing where we are. I'll get lots of tags. Yeah, so we're nearly 120 picks in. So I think when we get to just over 120 picks, I'll do a final summary, and then I'll let this go. We're starting to see some complete teams. Ben is literally almost there now. He can pretty much punch it home from here with just one pick left and $26. He can literally max out his money on one player, which will do him the world of good, no doubt. Sorry, I'm just bidding on a player, so I might go quiet for a second. Didn't get him. Dalton Schultz. That's fine. I've Dalton Schultz everywhere, so it's probably not a bad thing. Spread the portfolio. You've seen more and more teams filled in now. I'm the only one without a tie end. standard Murph protocol there. All right, Ben is done. Ben has filled his team. He just went with Courtland Sutton, spent his money, and he got there in the end and got Courtland Sutton to fill his team. So Ben is the first one done with his team, which is Joe Burrow, Travis Etienne, Zamir White, George Pickens, Jane Reed, Brock Bowers, Keane Coleman, Jameson Williams, Brian Thomas, the Jets, Tua, Tajay Spears, Jake Ferguson, Jalen Warren. He's got these two sort of high upside running back guys, which I love to go with his RBs. It's a good. And then Courtland Sutton. So yeah, big amount he's in now. But he's filled that team. He spent most of his money, so fair play to him on that. Yeah, some teams are a bit short on money here at this stage. We are 119 picks, so this will be pick 120. I feel this would be a good point to end the draft. I'm going to give you the view of the board. I'm not going to read out all the picks because I've read them several times, and that's probably not the best audio, but you can see here, that's the starting lineups. Again, I'm the only one without a tight end, so everyone's pretty much filled in their entire team except for their DSTs. Matt's got a couple of bench of flex spots to go. A couple of flex spots need to be filled in per team, but everyone's pretty much there on their teams. But we are pretty much there. The money is getting spent now as we're going down the stretch on these final players. A big bidding war on Brian Robinson Jr., which is almost the perfect place to sign off as one of my sort of late round guys that you can draft. At the moment, he is going for $13. His projected amount is 12, so it's actually kind of on the money, so it's not a bad spot to go. But that is, if I look now, it's 123 players gone. So that is almost everybody drafted. That gives me time to go and make that correction as well. So I'm going to call it a day here. I'm going to stop sharing the draft. I hope you've all really enjoyed this show. It's been a phenomenal one to do. It's been over 2 hours long. So thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for the interaction. Thank you so much to Drew, who has made this a great time. I'm sorry about the fuzzy picture now, but the light, as I mentioned, went. I better go investigate what has happened there. So thank you so much for joining in on this incredible stream. It's going to take for about 10 years to download, so I'm going to have to sit here and finish the draft off. Rush Nation, I'll be back with the morning show. I know it's been a bit sporadic at school holidays, so hope you can all apologize and live with me for that. I'm going to go and finish this auction. I'll post the draft results tomorrow. But until then, Rush Nation, don't forget, as always, you know what I'm going to say, don't you? No? I was waiting for you all to say it. But yeah, as always, keep rushing.